There's a story I heard in one of my meditations, and it has stuck with me all these years ever since I heard it. You have likely heard something like this before. It's pretty popular, and the story has some variations, but it goes something like this. There is a farmer who has a horse on his farm, and one day the horse runs away. And his neighbors know this and come to him and say, "Oh, such bad luck." And he says, "We'll see." The next day, the horse returns and this time brings with him many wild horses. And the neighbors see this and say, "Oh, such great luck." And the farmer says, "We'll see." The next day, the son of the farmer is attempting to tame one of the wild horses and is thrown off of the horse and breaks his leg. The neighbors come over, shake their heads, and say, "Oh, such terrible luck." And the farmer says, "We'll see." On the final day of this story, there apparently is a war that broke out, and the military is going door to door and conscripting young, able bodied men to join the effort. They see the son with a broken leg and they say, "Well, not him." And they move on, and the son stays at home in the safety of the farm. And the neighbors understood that this happened and come by and say, "Ah, such great luck." And the farmer says, "We'll see." I love this story because it's a reminder to me that especially in difficult times and times when you wish things were different, it is impossible to connect the dots going forward. We don't know what the future holds. We only know what is happening right now in this moment. And of course, we can look back on the past and understand what has happened in the past. But we don't know what's going to happen. I have an example of this story perfectly, I'd say, in my life that happened to me many, many years ago. I think it was around 2009 or 2010. I was a full-time indie app developer creating apps for the iPhone and iPad and Mac. At the time, I had one app live on the App Store. It was a time tracking tool. It had its dedicated customers. I was working on it, developing features and slowly but surely building sales and growing its numbers. And I one day was like any other day preparing lunch and decided to cut an avocado to add to my sandwich. And avocados are deceptively dangerous. Let me put that out there. I was trying to remove the pit with a knife, which is something I recommend you never, never, never do. And unfortunately, the pit was kind of weak. The knife went through the pit and stabbed my finger. In that moment, I would say that that was an objectively negative experience. I'm not sure anyone would look at that and say, "Oh, well, obviously, Sam, you should, look on the bright side and blah, blah, blah," right? And sure, I could tell myself, well, at least, the cut wasn't that bad. I didn't need stitches. My finger was going to heal just fine. All of those things are absolutely true. But in the exact moment when it happens, your brain isn't immediately shopping for positives. It's just responding to the negative stimuli of you cutting your finger. And you're like, "Oh my goodness." I remember it was the first time that I felt like I might faint. It was not a pleasant experience in that moment, right? The next couple of weeks, I couldn't type anymore, right? And I was a full-time developer, so my job basically was typing because I needed to code into my computer. And at the time, the iPhone already and had this feature for quite some time where if you double tap the space bar, it would add a period after a sentence. And for whatever reason, I was sitting there typing on my computer and just wishing that I could double tap the spacebar to enter a period after every sentence. Because something about how, I don't remember exactly, but something about how I was typing at the time with my injured finger, it was a bit of a chore to hit the period key. And literally, I just had the thought, like, I wish I could just double tap the spacebar and it would add a period, same as I do on my iPhone. And so I thought, well, why don't I just write a quick little text editor application to see if I could even code that? And so I opened up Xcode, I launched a new project, I dropped in a text editor and coded the feature to where if a person hit the spacebar twice in quick succession, it would add a period. And it worked. And I had been obsessed with minimalist writing apps at the time. I still technically am. I use one all the time for my Substack by the same name, The Forward Theory. I have links for it in the show notes every week. So if you're not already a subscriber, you can go and subscribe there. And I wanted to create my own minimalist writing app. So I thought in this moment, well, I've already kind of started. Why don't I just keep going? And so I kept working on this app and I built a couple other cool features of things that I was looking for in a writing app. And I called the whole application Compositions. named after those old essay books that we would have in school, like in English or whenever you turn in an essay test. All told, the project took about 3 weeks from when I had that aha moment with my injured hand to when I was uploading it to the Mac App Store to be published. And I set about to do the things that, I just normally did whenever I was going to release like a new app update on my time tracking tool. I wrote a press release. I said, here's this new app. It's called Compositions. Here's what it does. And it was used prmac.com, great little cheap, affordable service. They'd send it out to tech publications. And my experience to date had been that very few people picked that up. And, it maybe generated a small bump in downloads, but nothing all that substantial, but it was still good practice to do. And the next morning, after I'd sent out the press release and that, app had been live for a day or two at this point, I logged into my portal to see the downloads from the day before because it was always on like a day delay. And I was floored. I was absolutely shocked. I honestly thought it was a mistake because this was a paid app and it had thousands of downloads in the course of one day. Like basically its launch day. And I started to dig around. And I was like, well, what happened? This is incredible. What did happen was that many publications actually did pick up the story, and major ones like Macworld and the Next Web. And I'd even learned that Apple put it in their new and noteworthy section in the Mac App Store. I even got an email from Apple, which honestly I thought was fake, asking for more promotional materials and graphics because they might feature it on the Mac app homepage with like a banner and everything. So unreal experience, right? To go from being this little indie developer, getting a handful of downloads a day of my apps to now being featured and being thrown on the App Store new and noteworthy section and getting thousands of downloads and getting all these positive reviews. And later I would learn that actually one of my favorite tech writers and editors called out compositions as his favorite writing tool to use, which I thought like that's so cool. This guy literally writes for a living and he's using this app. And it was such an amazing experience all together, right? None of that would have happened if I had stayed in the negative place of, oh man, I injured my finger and now I can't work and I'm miserable, I'm upset, like will my finger ever get better? Why did I do such a dumb thing? I should really be more careful. And it would have been so easy to follow that storyline. It's exactly like in the story of the horse one day shows up and it's great news. The horse leaves or injures his son and it's bad news. I hurt myself cutting an avocado. It's bad news. That led to a moment of inspiration to create an app that ended up being a best-selling app for me. That's good news. Um, Eventually, I would have to actually pull the app from the App Store because I ran out of time and money to be able to support it. That's bad news, quote unquote. All of these things are just things that happen. What makes this powerful and what makes that lesson so powerful is that you just remain open to what may come next. And that is a lesson that has stuck with me all these years later. And when I heard that story for the first time in a meditation about the horses, this exact example about the avocado that led to me writing this app came to mind because those are two such crazy different events that you could never logically draw a line between. And here I was with a direct path from I cut my hand cutting into an avocado to I launched a best-selling Mac app that eventually led me to wanting to dive even deeper into business and then eventually led me to applying to business school. And the line after it is unbelievable. And I would have never been able to write that storyline out looking forward. I could only ever talk about it and write about it looking back. So when something happens, to you, now, no matter how small or how large it is, first, feel those feelings. Take that time, allow yourself to process. In no way, shape, or form do I ever recommend that you just gloss over your feelings. It is important to allow ourselves to feel, to be humans. If you lost your job, that's a really crummy thing to happen. That's stressful. That is absolutely a stressful event. I think it's one of the most stressful events that can happen. Take the time to grieve the loss of that job. It is a negative thing to try to gloss over that or tell yourself, "Oh, well, good things are coming," and have this positive, almost toxic positive outlook on it. I think it's important to first acknowledge that losing your job sucks and that that's a hard thing to happen to anyone, but don't stay in that space for too long. That would be my advice. Keep your eyes open, keep your heart open, keep your mind open to opportunities and look for the light. Look for the light in that dark area in your life. If you stay too closed off and you stay in that dark space for too long and you convince yourself that this is just how it's always going to be and that no other job is coming or no other opportunity is coming, your mind will literally shrink to that thought because it will no longer be seeking opportunities and it will no longer be seeking a path that says something good may come from this. It will start to reinforce the story that you are telling it, that only bad things are going to happen to me from now on, that there is no more good, there are no more jobs, there is no more opportunity. We have a very strong confirmation bias in our brains. We like to be right. We look for confirmation to what we believe and what we say. So if we say that I'm never going to get a job again, we likely are never going to get a job again, because if a job presented itself right in front of us, we might miss it. There is that study that I've likely mentioned before that somewhat proves that our visual cortex shrinks when we are in a bad mood, when we have a negative mindset. They would show paintings and pictures to people, and people who identified as generally more positive and optimistic, and people who self identified as generally more cynical and negative. And then the researchers would ask questions to each of these groups. What do they remember from the photos? And on the whole, the group that was more positive and optimistic could remember more of the photo. They could remember more details of what was in the photo or the painting. They could tell you things that were in the background, not necessarily in the forefront. They could give you a sense of the mood and just a lot of rich detail about the photo or the painting. The people that were in the negative and cynical group could tell you very little about it. It's literally like they couldn't even see the same picture in the same way. And what's so fascinating about the visual cortex and how sight works is that it is not a singular path from start to finish. It is not just light comes in and it's disseminated. It is that light comes in through our eyes, and then our brains can actually insert material into what we're seeing. It can remove material from what we've seen. It can manipulate the things that we see. And of course, when it's stored in memory, it can also change all of that as well. And so our visual system is so richly complex that it is not just a camera system. We're not just snapping photos. We are actually actively processing, and our brain is filtering out what it thinks that we need to see and what it thinks that we don't need to see. And so that's what research like that has shown, is that if you have a more positive and optimistic mindset, then it doesn't mean that you're happy and smiling all the time. It just means that you believe in general good things eventually come your way, more or less. Then you will see more of the world around you. You will understand and see more detail because your brain is constantly and actively scanning for more detail and more opportunity and more possibilities for you to pursue. If you are more pessimistic and negative, your brain has been reinforcing this worldview that there is no opportunity and there are no possibilities for you, and that the world basically has shut down to you. And so it filters out information and removes it from what you see. Think about that for a second. Like, that is so shocking to me and so powerful, that our eyes are not just they're not just cameras. They are really advanced cameras with editing software. They are cameras that can add material and remove material, cameras that can zoom in on areas or just whitewash areas. Your ability to change your mindset then will directly impact your ability to see more detail in the world, and as a result see more opportunity and more possibilities. When you get an email that the cynical mind might just discard, the optimistic and opportunistic mind will read that same email and say, maybe I can reply to this email and just see where it goes. Or maybe I'm going to reach out to this person and just see, ask for more information. And you're opening doors. You are building the app that gets launched on the App Store against all odds. You are taking an injury and turning it into something that you never even imagined possible. You are remaining open. And that is the best thing that we can do in this life. We can remain open. The world can be really punishing. Hard things happen to us all the time. It's hard to understand why they happen to us, but what we can control is our reaction to those things. We don't need to immediately lock into this is a bad thing and will forever be a bad thing. Similarly, we don't need to lock into this is a good thing will forever be a good thing. We just need to remain open to whatever might come next and allow ourselves to feel our feelings, feel the joys, feel the lows, feel the highs and the lows, and just again remain open to whatever might come next. Your attitude will improve, your life will improve, and you will find that you're less bothered by these small annoyances in your life because it can be really easy to get stuck in little annoyances and grievances because your brain was trained to do that and was trained to constantly reinforce that like your life is negative and nothing good ever happens. Now you are training and reinforcing that your life in general is positive. Like bad things happen, sure, but in general it's a positive life because you know that even from negative things there can be some light that comes from them.